Morning Jabbers, how the devil are you? Well? Excellent, me too, thank you very much for asking. And yeah, today's video is actually filmed on the 12th of July, but I wanted you guys to hear what I'm about to say. For the main reason being that on the 30th of June we buried my dad. If you don't already know, he passed away on the 13th of June. And yeah, on the 30th was his funeral, and something that I said to myself that I wanted to do, and something I found quite a lot of solace in doing as well, was writing his eulogy. The day I found out, it was really weird. I came home and the first thing I did was start writing what I have here, and what I read out on the day of his funeral. And it was horrendous, but gratifying in the same breath as well. It was kind of strange. But it was something I felt I had to do and something I really wanted to do. Nobody else really was going to do this kind of thing. It was going to be left to the vicar, and I wanted to have my chance to say goodbye to Dad and give everybody else a chance to say goodbye as well. And nobody needed me to tell them to be sad. It was a sad day, obviously. So nobody needed me to reiterate that for them, and I wanted people to go away with fond memories and possibly having a bit of a laugh as well, because Dad was all about the humorous side of life. So what I want to do is I want to read you my eulogy that I gave to Dad at his funeral, by ways of letting you know how amazing Dad was, how awesome a guy he was, what he brought to my life and to my family's life, and also by a way of having it as a permanent record. Because obviously I didn't film that on the day. It's not something you do, is stand there with a camera in front of you while you're talking to a crowd of 50 or 60 people. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do for you now. If you don't want to hear it, I'll see you tomorrow on the usual vlog. And yeah, if you do stick around, thank you very much. And this is the record of what I had to say on the day. So here we go. Graham Leslie Scholes, athletic, svelte, good hair, great legs. Just a few words I'd love to use to describe my dad. I'd love to use them, but I can't. I can't because they do describe me, and I suppose his genetics played a part, but they don't describe him. Well, apart from my great legs, Mum always used to say my legs took after my dad, and she always liked that part of him. What I can say is crossword fanatical, cantankerous, stubborn, funny, intelligent. He was usually quite good at the quizzes down at the Swan and Signet, where he used to go and meet his friends. Bacardi loving, my friend, spirited away far too young at just 69, and before he had enough fun. He was husband to Mum, and mine and my sister's dad. Those are words we can use for him. He was brother to my auntie, and son to Grandma and Grandad. And believe it or not, back in the day, he was quite a sporty lad, playing football, and I've even got a black and white photo of him lining up for the school sports day athletics race at Costello back when it was a cinder track and he was about 13 years old. He had a hugely eclectic taste in music, with a love of everything from Queen, the Moody Blues, the Beatles, through to musical theatre like Phantom of the Opera, which he finally got to see on Broadway a few years ago. In fact, he gave me a love of music of all genres, which was probably to blame for me ending up working in radio for such a long time. And as we'll leave later on today, there's a piece of music that will play that not only did he love, but I've luckily found a version that includes so many of his favourite musicians: Paul McCartney, Eric Clapton, Jeff Lynne, and so many others, when they say goodbye to their friend George Harrison. And I think it's a perfect way for us to say goodbye to our friend today too. Email. He taught me about the wonders of Meccano, Lego, electronics and Airfix kits, although when it came to building stuff he usually took over so it was done correctly, because I'd normally make mistakes. He read me stories in bed as a kid, then would finish off by rubbing his bristly chin over my face to make me laugh, so much so that I'd get upset when he forgot to do it after reading. And he gave Mum, Janine and I the greatest gift of all, an opportunity to see parts and cultures of the world only people dream of seeing: India, Petra, New Zealand, Australia, the USSR, America, Ecuador, the Suez and Panama Canal, and even Perth in Scotland, not the Australian one. He started his career as an apprentice on the docks of Hull, working over the years with the likes of Cunard and Portline. When he met Mum, he was already at sea, but she gave him a new drive, more commonly known as a kick up the backside, and he went on to eventually get his chief's ticket, which is what he did until he retired just a few years ago, working for Hansa and Unishipping. As I grew older, he told me about being away from us for such long periods of time was really hard for him, and it's probably why, whenever we could, we'd go away with him for a few days, weeks, or a whole trip, and he'd have us there in a shot. I still have fond memories of my first ever trip away with him. Mum and I went away for 4 months. I might have only been 5 years old at the time, but even now, at 40, those memories are still as vivid as if they happened yesterday. From me being arrested by Neptune, I was Dad dressed up, but I'm not meant to know that, for throwing messages in bottles and hitting the poor fishes on their heads with them, to watching school children march up and down in Novorossiysk for hours on end guarding the eternal flame in the USSR. I always loved going away with Dad. It meant a bit of me and him time in, for want of a better wording, his natural surroundings. He'd take great pride in showing me around the different engine rooms on different ships, and even once I got my very own boiler suit and spent most of my trip down there with him. I'm still not particularly great at fiddling with engines, but I did inherit his love of steam engines, and I'll make sure this year to visit another steam rally to remember him by. Other times in his life, I remember how proud he was to have my sister on his arm for her wedding to my brother-in-law, walking her down the aisle and giving her away. There's a photo just as you're getting out of the car, and the smile on his face is something else, and I know how happy I was that he was with me on my wedding day to Susanna. He loved being a granddad to my nieces and nephews, and it's with a breaking in my heart he won't be around to meet any more grandchildren that may come along. And I did say may, don't get too excited just yet, Mum. But I know how happy and proud he would have been to be their granddad, and he still will be. I think through all of this, the one thing I can take solace in is I spoke to him on the day he passed away, and probably the last person he spoke to. And although we didn't have exactly a riveting conversation, I was telling him about my new drone and work and stuff, and in his usual excited way he said, very good. Just before I said goodbye, I did tell him I loved him, and as always, when we ever spoke or were together, he told me he loved me too. Hopefully you have a fond memory of him from some time or another you can use to remember him by. A moment down at the track where he came to support me when he was at home and could even be found raking a long jump pit now and again at a competition. A time from the Swan and Signet where he went to be surrounded by friends a couple of times a week. A trip you had with him where you sat putting the world to rights over a Bacardi and Coke. Or simply a family and friends barbecue sat out in the rain with a tarpaulin covering the fire so it didn't go out while he cooked the sausages and burgers. Or even the moment my best friend reminded me about the other day when I sent him a photograph of the three of us together, and we used to have fireworks parties down our street. We'd go to different houses each year, and one year it was at my parents' house, and we had a Catherine wheel, and Dad couldn't find a piece of wood to nail the Catherine wheel to, so he went into the garage, and Mum had just had the kitchen replaced, and he found a piece of wood that he hammered the Catherine wheel into and set fire to it. The Catherine wheel not only burnt one of Mum's brand new cupboard doors, but also span off the actual piece of wood, smashing into a bird table that Mum had made at a local pottery class. She wasn't too best pressed. To be slightly self-indulgent here, if I can give you all one learning from this whole thing, it's this. Tell the people who mean the most to you you love them every time you're with them. Capture memories galore, photos, videos, everything you can. Thankfully, I've caught Dad many times in my daily vlogs, and those moments are even all the more special to me now, as I can use them to be in that moment and be with him. Just one last thing. I know he passed on his sense of humour on to me because not only do we love the likes of Billy Connolly and Jasper Carrott, we also love The Goon Show, Monty Python, amongst many others. So much so, I'd love to play you a piece of the excerpts of some of Dad's favourite pieces so you can have a laugh with him.